Did you spend the last 12 years watching Game of Thrones, quoting aphorisms and wishing from your home in Basingstoke that you could legally wield a sword? Given that 100% of my audience is male and that 50% of you are aged 25 to 44, statistically you did, and law of averages would suggest that this watch does something for you. This is the Valimor Kilgharrah. Kilgharrah was an Arthurian dragon, but like I say, dragons equals Game of Thrones. And if Game of Thrones taught us anything, and it didn't, then it's that throwing dragons into something won't suddenly make everything better. Valimor have chosen to ignore that wisdom, and I think this watch is all the better for it. Why? Well, I'll get onto that. Firstly, welcome back to the channel. My name's Pip. Now, just to be clear from the top, Valimor sent this watch to me today for review, and I don't have to send it back.
That's all the realm is now. Backstabbing and scheming and arse-licking and money-grubbing.
Obviously that won't affect my review, nor have the brand had any copy approval or anything like that. So let's go through the specs, the pros, the cons, and at the end I'll tell you whether or not I think this is a good deal. Okay, so before those pros and cons, let's go through the specs. We have a 40mm diameter, a compact 47mm lug-to-lug, a case height or thickness of 15mm, but it wears a bit slimmer than that, and somewhat wide 22mm lugs. The bracelet barely tapers, getting down to just 21mm at the butterfly clasp. Sized up for my 6.5-inch wrist, it weighs 150 grams, so this is dive watch heavy. Power in the watch is the Miyota 8315 movement, which features hacking, hand winding, and a power reserve of 60 hours. It has a 60-click unidirectional bezel, but despite those dive watch looks, only 100 meters of water resistance, possibly owing to the fact that we only have a push-pull crown and not a screw-down crown. So far though, I am getting a lot of Game of Thrones vibes. Well, except the lack of screwing. There was a lot of screwing on Game of Thrones. Probably a lot of pushing and pulling too. The price on the stainless steel bracelet is £432 or $527. That is a fairly big chunk of Lannister gold for a watch from a relatively unknown micro brand. And there are obviously a lot of options at this price, but not all of them are leaning this hard into their inspiration.
Where are my dragons?
Yeah, okay, we're going to get onto the dragons now, and everything else that might make this an interesting proposition for you. Okay, so I promised dragons, and boy does this deliver. Let's start with the dial, which is inspired by dragon scale Arthurian armor, but that's not strictly a gimmick. It actually gives the dial a really nice texture and some real depth. The raised gravestone markers and indices at 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 and 12 look like they're floating above the dial surface, and they're also quite a handy way to learn the 2x table. They're flanked by an inner rehort featuring train track minute markers, which are punctuated by what I'm going to call golden buttons, like those a regal old king from Westeros or whatever would use to do up their tunic. The chapter ring flanking that looks like it's probably protected by the National Trust, such is the intricacy of the pattern. It's a bit stately home carpet, but is much better looking than that comparison would suggest. The packaging is small but beautifully elaborate. Like, this reminds me of getting a collector's edition of a video game, you know, with the special little illustrated pamphlet and all those little extra things that make it feel a lot more special and add that little touch of gloss. Back to the watch itself though, and speaking of gloss, there's a ceramic bezel insert, and that features the same font as used for the rest of the numerals elsewhere on the watch.
Where are my dragons?
Yeah, okay, we'll get back onto them now. On this black and gilt edition, that ceramic insert is surrounded by golden bezel teeth that again evoke dragon scale armor. Moving back to the dial, and the hands are actually a sword, so if you look, the hour hand serves as the hilt and pommel, while the minute hand is the blade. These are insanely well finished, and as you can see, even under macro, they stand up to extremely close scrutiny. The finishing throughout the rest of the watch is very good too. The head of the watch is all brushed, but for the polished flanks and chamfered edges. The brushing is even and consistent, and the chamfers and transitions are all really well done. No sharp edges to speak of either. The push-pull crown is also topped with a black Swarovski crystal. I don't know much about crystals, all I'll say is it's a black crystal and it matches the colour of the ceramic bezel insert.
Where are my dragons?
Yeah, okay, back to the dragons. The mineral exhibition caseback shows off the Miyota 8315, which is pretty unremarkable. Whoa, what the hell? Check out that rotor. Dracarys motherfuckers. and on a rotor so gold that I assume it belongs to the Catholic Church. Very nicely done indeed. Okay, so it's not an in-house movement or anything like that, it's a Miyota movement, but that is the Sistine Chapel of custom rotors. The rest of the caseback features a bit of a spec list, plus the European patent number, probably to piss off Nigel Farage. Valimor knows this is a unique design and they want to show that off. What's more, between the lugs you'll actually see a number between 1 and 50 because each colourway is limited to just 50 pieces. Okay, so they're the pros, and that's a lot of pros, but...
Nothing someone says before the word but really counts.
Yeah, alright, but there are some cons. There's always it's the structure of the videos, pros, cons. So there's certainly parts of this bracelet that I appreciate. The excellent finishing, the fact that it's a genuine 5-link bracelet, the quick release spring bars, and that it maintains that dragon armor scale design from the dial. But...
Nothing someone says before...
Yeah, alright, you already said that, but those quick release spring bars, they protrude so much that it actually means the bracelet doesn't really articulate, and it just stiffens the first link, essentially extending the size of the watch's profile on your wrist. What's more, the butterfly clasp and the lack of half links means that you might not get the perfect fit. On my wrist, it was either too tight or too loose. As you can see on most of my footage, I've chosen too tight, and it's very Robert Baratheon.
And the king's too fat for his armour. Go find the breastplate stretcher. Now!
I think a dive style clasp would have been a much more practical option here, even if that meant giving up the coherence that the butterfly clasp offers. The 60-click unidirectional bezel is a nice surprise in that I always want more brands to try 60-click bezels. Sadly, this one is just too much backplate and the sound of the clicks is a little bit too high pitched. Take a listen. Fortunately, it's probably the only cheap feeling part of this watch. The push-pull crown isn't cheap feeling, but it is a bit of a letdown on a watch that looks so much like a diver. I wish it was a screw-down crown, even if it still only had that 100 meters of water resistance, just for the added peace of mind. And before anyone starts lecturing me on water resistance or how these watches can handle the sort of swimming and non-diving that losers like me do, I don't care.
A lion doesn't concern himself with the opinions of a sheep.
The Lume is unremarkable, but on the bezel, its application is very light indeed. If they do make future iterations of this, which I honestly hope they do, fingers crossed they can improve this. Ditto the crystal, which I do wish had more AR coating. Apparently there are 3 layers on the underside, but this could really do with more. There's so much flecto, and I'd like less of that to enjoy the dial. And that's basically the bottom line. There's a few compromises, but if you can get past them, you get a really well finished watch with an absolutely stunning dial. Okay, let's go through those final scores. This is as original a twist on the dive watch as you're likely to find. The movement is really nicely decorated, but I'm docking a point for that ghost state position. Good job it's got a 60-hour power reserve then. Price is very fair for the quality of the materials on offer, and it's a decent 2-year warranty from a brand that knows itself and wears its inspiration on its sleeve. It is a well finished watch, and that means it does feel good on the wrist if you get the right fit, and I'm stressing that because I'd go for the rubber strap so that you don't have to contend with the butterfly clasp bracelet without half links. Overall then, it's a 7 out of 10. So let me know what you think of the Valimor Kilgharrah down in the comments. I do read them all and I'll respond as and when I can. Please do subscribe if you haven't done so already. When I get to 6,000 subscribers, I'm going to be giving away the Lume Pip custom watch to one of you guys, and you need to be a subscriber to be in with a chance of winning. Thank you to Valimor for sending me this for review. There's a link to their website in the description below. It's not an affiliate link or anything like that, but do feel free to say that I sent you. Most importantly though, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.